Rebecca, how are you?
I'm excellent. I'm so happy to be talking to you. We know so many of the same people, and you're in my ears a lot when I'm gardening. I put my big headphones on and listen to Finding Mastery and on my bike. And so I'm really excited to talk to you.
Oh, that's a great way to start. That's really fun. And you are, I said it in the intro, but you're a legend. And I'm excited to talk to you because I think you really understand this language that is it's not reserved for few, but only few understand it. And that language is the language that happens in the frontier with world leading game changers across industries. It's the same language. It's the same type of conversation. And so I want to I want to spend some time with you about how you think about things. And the things that I'm interested in are both internal things and external things. Like, how do you make sense of when something doesn't go according to plan, which has been most of your life, I think? And then how do you make sense of the things that pop up in your own internal experience, emotions and thought patterns and whatever? Like, I want to know that from you. And let me just take a quick little moment here to say congratulations on a radical body of work and being able to tell stories that move people. And so thank you for the time.
Well, I mean, ditto right back at you. And I love it's awesome that you think I've got it all figured out, because part of my reason of being really excited to talk to you is you're going to help me continue to figure out. And it is a journey. I really do feel like we're constantly evolving. And so I don't have it all figured out, but I want to continue to learn. And I think that's been a big part of, when people ask, why do you keep doing this stuff or that stuff, I'm interested in being a perpetual student. So there's a favorite quote I have that came to me not too long ago, and I don't even know who said it. It's an old Eastern philosophy sort of quote, and it says, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." And so that I've kind of been living by that for the last sort of 5 or 6 years. And anyway, so I think we're all students, and I appreciate what you do on the podcast, because I learn a lot from you as well.
Ah, too fun. Okay, so who have been some of your teachers?
Teachers. Um, well, probably my biggest teacher is movement in the outdoors, and that's how I have started. It's how I started as a young child, playing in the dirt, camping in the backyard. Being curious, asking my mom, like, "Can I camp out in the backyard again this weekend?" And continuing even this past winter to on the Iditarod Trail, and riding my bike in the snow for a week at a time. So the outdoors is my teacher, and if you follow the arc of my career, it might look like it's all over the place, but there really is this constant theme of the outdoors movement and curiosity and exploration. And I've actually started referring to myself not as an athlete or professional athlete, but as an explorer, because I feel like athlete is too small for what I'm doing and what I want to do. Athlete is part of it, but it's not the whole thing.
I want to wave my hands and say, yeah, I love that for you. And I've seen that in your commitment towards the edge. And so I know that I'm not supposed to really ask you this question, but you know what question's coming?
No.
How old are you? I know we're not
Oh,
really supposed to ask, but I think it's materially important to this conversation.
yeah. And you know what? And I don't mind you asking, and I share my age a lot because I want people to know this is what 52 looks and feels and sounds like. I'm 52 years old, and I feel amazing. My body is serving me very well. Obviously there's adaptations I have to make, like stretching and sleeping and some of those sort of wellness things that we should have been doing 30 years ago. But yeah, I'm 52, and I feel like I'm still in an athletic prime. And I had this last winter, I did two really big bike expeditions, and one of them in particular, I feel like was the best performance of my life in an expedition. And so I'm pretty excited about that one. So I'm 52. You're fine to ask it. And because I believe that people need to see what things look like. And I remember being in high school, and, your teachers maybe 28 years old, and you're like, oh, my math teacher's so old, and then by the time you're 28 or 30, you're like, oh, it's not really that old. And so, yeah, I'm 52. I don't use the word old. I use the word seasoned, experienced, and no other place. Like, you think about people who excel in areas of the brain, politicians, lawyers, scientists. You would never be like, oh, you're done at 50, like just hang it up, it's over. And I think that's what's really exciting for me in my athletic career, is that I'm not competing and doing stuff at this age because I am a physical phenom. I'm pretty average. You can ask my coach. My physiology is okay. It's good. Um, but the longevity that's really happened in the last decade for me is all the other stuff, what I call the spaces in between. Your mind, your brain, what you listen to, what you think about, how you sleep. I know you talk about a lot of those things, but that's really why I feel like this last winter was the best performance of my life in Alaska, because I combined some new exciting techniques. And I'm pretty excited about how I'm more now, and where science and ancient techniques are coming together, and implementing some of that stuff has been super fun. And really the last 5 years or so that I've added some of those things.
Can we drill down? I want to do one quick frame, which is what are you exploring? And then I want to drill down into the spaces between.
Mhm.
And then I want to have a triple click and get into what are some of the practices that you're
We're going to
finding to be.
click. We're
Yeah,
clicking in. I love when you say that.
Do you? Yeah. Okay, good. So hit with a quick frame really quickly. What are you exploring?
I'm exploring myself. That is, and I use of course, I want to see what's over the next hill. I love exploring externally. And I originally thought all of my explorations were that. I lived out of my car. I've, rock climbed all over the place, filled a bunch of passports. And originally I thought I was exploring the world. But now come to the understanding and the consciousness that I've been exploring myself the whole time. And my platform has just been movement in the outdoors. So absolutely a study of self. I think one of your previous guests used the term, I don't remember which guest it was, but she said me search instead of research. And I really like that. So yeah, that's what I'm exploring, is me.
So you're using you to understand humans, or are you using you to understand you?
That's a really good question. I originally thought I was about me. I'm like performing, winning on a podium, going this place, understanding me. But really the cool trajectory that really is very new, that's just starting to crystallize for me, is that the reason I'm studying me, and this is the purpose that my dad has helped give me, is that now I can package and put that together and take that and share that with other people and fast track their performance. And I truly believe this is my purpose in life, and it's why I'm athletically gifted. I've created my path this way, eventually to share what I know with other people. And not that I know everything, but I know a bunch of stuff. I've ridden and been, more miles than most people will. And so it's almost like getting a Cliff Notes instead of having to take the university class. And so yeah, it was me, and now it's expanding beyond me.
Okay, so I want to harden this up a little bit for me, because the frame is I'm an explorer. I've been exploring me for a long time.
Mhm.
I use the outdoors and the edges of the frontier and the edges of my capacity to better understand how I can go further and do more. But then when I
Mhm.
started to look at it more deeply, I'm an explorer of me, my potential, and now I'm figuring out what are the right ways to share the opening process for other people's potential. Okay, close so far.
Exactly. Close.
Okay,
Yes.
so how did you go from the narcissistic, self-absorbed, self-focused requirement sometimes, not
Mhm.
always,
Mhm.
but sometimes the selfishness of using your own self for your success and your kind of need to win and need to whatever to pay the bills, and it's the athlete trap in many respects. And So it's not reserved just for athletes. It's most people that are tip of the arrow type folks. There is a selfishness involved. So how did you go from selfishness to selflessness?
I think that pivot started when I wrote my book and I was asked to write my book. A publisher came to me and I didn't really want to write a book. And I will tell you that practice is the hardest thing I've done, because everything I have achieved in life is just from working harder. You put in more miles, you spend more time, and the results come. Creative writing is not that way. The harder you try, the less it flows, for me, at least. And I put that book out because I was asked to do it. And it was a bunch of adventure stories and lessons that I've learned. And that practice, it was probably like basically my first journaling practice was writing a book and putting it out there. And when I was done with it, it was like, I don't think anyone's going to read this but my mom. And that's fine. And I was totally okay with it, because it was such a cool exercise to, one, look back and celebrate that, like, oh, wow, I've done some cool stuff, instead of just, what's the next thing? How can I win more? How can I do more? How can I do the next thing? I was forced to look backwards, kind of a reverse bucket list, and be like, whoa, okay. Like, not to brag or anything, but like, I've done some cool stuff, when I had to write it all down. And but then when the book did come out, and like young girls read it and dads read it and athletes read it and non-athletes read it, and I got some really nice feedback from people that I saw that it helped people, and I was shocked by that. I really didn't expect it. I didn't understand it, but that was the first opening, that the power of telling a story and sharing your experience so that others can resonate and be like, oh, I feel that way too. I'm not totally alone in the world. Like admitting, I had an eating disorder, admitting I'm scared at races, that I was a lousy mountain biker, like just admitting that, we hold pro athletes or high achievers up on this pedestal. And I was pretty honest in the book, because I didn't think anyone was going to read it. And I was really honest. Even my coach at the time, he's like, wow, you were really honest. And I was like, well, no one's going to read it anyway. But people did, and it resonated and helped people. And I think that was the first eye opener, that it's important to share our stories, not for narcissism, not to say, hey, look at me, but to be like, hey, I'm normal. You're normal. We're all going through some of this stuff. Maybe this will help you. Here's how I dealt with it. And that was years ago, but that really started me understanding that it isn't just about me. And that has launched, into event that I put on and girls clinics that I teach. And I mean, I can tell you, when I stand on the finish line of the event that I put on here in Idaho, like, I am so amped and excited for people to come in from 100 miles, and they're sweating and crying. And like, I'm just as excited as if it was me standing on a podium. And it's one of my sort of core, what I call my navigational handrails that I've developed. And it's that give equals get. And when we do give a little of ourselves, we get a lot back. And that's really has shaped sort of the last, I don't know, decade of my work and my career.
Okay. I want to take a quick minute right here to talk about Dragon. If there's one item that has pretty much stayed glued to me in the last few months, it's been my sunglasses. And so I've been outside a lot, which has been awesome. And I'm choosing Dragon. And Dragon is an amazing eyewear company. I think you're going to love their premium polarized floatable sunglasses. And even if you're not spending time in the water right now, like, this is just, it's a great product, because they got to figure it out here. And so I bet most of you have some sort of story about losing sunglasses on the water. I've had plenty. It's never fun. It's kind of a drag. And so originally my solution was, I've lost too many. I'm just going to buy some cheap glasses. But it's not a good strategy. The quality is compromised. The vision is not as clear when you have like good, proper polarized lenses. And then what I love about what they've done is that they've got a floatable collection that's constructed from a specially formulated injection where the density is lower than water. And so what does that mean? It allows them to float. I mean, how good is that? So they've also designed it with a special coating to ensure that they are resistant to water and dirt and oil and all the other elements, at the same time maintaining a crystal clear view. So I want to highly recommend you checking out their full collection at Dragon. To learn more and to get 15% off your purchase, punch over to dragonalliance.com and use the code FindingMastery at checkout. So that's Dragon Alliance, ALLIANCE.com, and use the code FindingMastery for 15% off. Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Babbel. When it comes to learning a language, Babbel's done a really nice job. I am loving what they've created. When you are wanting to learn another language, it comes from somewhere. And it means that you want to understand how to communicate in somebody's native tongue. You want to go to a place and better understand and converse to soak up the culture. And if you're not going somewhere right now, which is understandable, maybe you want to understand like how to better communicate with people that you really value, or you want to tap into some of your heritage and your roots. And so for me, it is all of those. And I did not soak up a language when I was younger. I wish I did, but I did not. So I'm using Babbel right now. They are the #1 selling language learning app. So what they do is they just give you these bite-sized lessons. You'll learn new language skills that you can actually use in the real world, like greetings and menus and directions and asking questions. And so I want to encourage you to check them out. They've got 14 different languages, obviously Spanish and French and Italian and German. Plus their speech recognition technology helps you improve your pronunciation. So right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. So that's 6 months for the price of 3. Punch over to Babbel, Babbel.com, and use the code MASTERY. So that's Babbel.com, and then use the code MASTERY for an extra 3 months free. So with that, let's jump right back into this conversation. So before we double click down into some practices, let's go to the dark side for a minute. So what have been some of the costs? Let's talk about eating disorders. Let's talk about loneliness. Let's talk about relationships. And I just feel like you have an honest, unvarnished look and ability to explain the cost of pursuing, and I don't know this yet for you, was it the best or your best? Either way, there's a cost. So which one was it? The best or your best was your pursuit? And then what are some of the darker sides that you found to be like a bit hard, difficult?
Yeah, the best and my best, that has vacillated a few different times in my career. I got involved with sport in cross country in high school, cross country running, and basically pretty low self-esteem, low body image. And my next door neighbor, who was my sister's age, 2 years older, she said to me, hey, well, she was on the cross country running team. She's like, hey, if you join the cross country running team, you get a free tracksuit and you'll never get fat. I was like, I'm in. And literally that was my entree into sport, was so I could have a cool, like cotton kind of sweatsuit with the little hoodie and everything. And mostly so that I wouldn't get fat. But I discovered something quite different along the way. And so of course my performance in high school was not, I wasn't thinking I was a winner or wasn't, I was kind of surprised that I had any talent in sport. And so then once I started to see that, we won the state meet and we did some things. Then it was very me focused and being my best. Transfer quick to another transition when you sort of start collecting a paycheck for doing a sport, the dynamic changes quite a lot. And all of a sudden, even the best and your best isn't enough. You could win a world championship that year and a contract is canceled at the end of the year. And so that became a kind of a twisted period of I am doing my best and I'm the best, and that's still not good enough. Like, what else can I do? And that, I think that was a good period to actually really helped me be honest as an athlete of what do I stand for? Why am I in this sport? Is it just about podiums? And it is my career. I do love my career, but there in the middle there, sort of 30, I started mountain biking at age 38. So as I'm, 40-ish, I started transitioning to, yes, I want to do my best. yeah, I'm still very competitive. My husband can attest to that. I love to win. Um, but it's bigger than that now. It's not about checking off things on a resume. That said, that kind of ability to shape your brand and your career and what you stand for, it comes later, because no one can take away the world championships. No one can take away the wins anymore. I have those. I have them on my resume. And so I can be a little bit more free with my decision making. But in the middle, the heat of it, you're scrapping for contracts, and especially women in endurance sports don't make a lot of money. And so you talk about sacrifice. I mean, yeah, there were big costs of choosing to go this adventurous route, including no health insurance, living out of my car, no place to live. Yeah, a lot of that stuff. And I always said, when I have a garage, like, I know I've really made it. And it wasn't even the house. Like, I just wanted the garage to put all my stuff, you know? So I have a garage in Idaho, and I have a house that's attached to it. And there's a sense of stability that it took me many, many decades to get to. You know, I didn't buy a place, have a home to live in until age 40, 43. So yeah, my high school home, you know, I grew up with my mom, and then my next home, you know, it took decades to get there.
Do you see the choices you've made to be sacrifices, or this isn't? A lot of people will talk about sacrifices, and I don't see them that way in my life. I don't see sacrifices. I see as like choices that are going to maybe be harder but necessary, and so I don't really understand the sacrifice thing.
I'm with you. I don't get it either. Like, people can look and there were choices that I made. I could have gotten a different job. I didn't have to live out of my car. I didn't have to go after these things, but you know, that explorer in me, the curiosity. I mean, you know, Stephen Kotler is someone I'm really interested in right now. I've been talking to him. He wrote The Art of Impossible, and he talks about, you know, what are the brain chemicals released for motivation? And curiosity is one of them. Curiosity is extremely motivating. And so, no, I don't look at my choices as sacrifices. Somebody might, like sleeping in the dirt, you know, or sleeping in your car. For some people isn't the right thing, but what it led to was like, oh yeah, I'll sleep in the dirt if I can go climb El Cap. Like, sure, I'll go without, you know, eating, you know, as much as I want to eat if I can travel the world. I'll go without a regular 9-to-5 job if, you know, I can carve my own career path. And yeah, so I almost feel lucky that I had the courage to sort of carve this really unconventional path that there was no trail map for, you know. And it's great to see people are, especially in sport and career, like, there's a lot more creativity now than there was 30 years ago for somebody to build a career. People can work digitally. You can, you know, you can hone your skills at home. You don't even have to go to college. So the path is different. But at the time that I was carving it, there weren't very many people who'd come before, sort of in the sports world, and especially women in endurance sports world. So yeah, it was a sacrifice, but look, you know, people now, I went back to my high school reunion and they're just like, you're so lucky, you're so lucky. And I'm like, I'm not lucky, you know. And I talked to a bunch of my classmates who are, you know, I went to school in the suburbs of Chicago, and they're all still there, and they're working in the city, they're commuting, they don't like their jobs, you know, and they're just saying, you're so lucky. And it's like, well, it wasn't luck at all. It was hard work and choice.
So you're a 7-time world champion. It's just one of the shingles that you could post, you know, in front of your office there, or on your website, I guess. And what do you hope, what do you wish 16-year-old girls would understand that you have come to understand? And I'm going to ask you a series of these. Just
confidence. And that's what I got from sport. Confidence in your body as a tool that, you know, just confidence. It's that age is so vulnerable. And I really do believe in the power of sport in high school, junior high school, young age, because you learn, that's what I learned, was confidence and community. And so for any young girl out there. Go on a run, go on a walk, and you'll learn about yourself, and you'll learn that you're pretty awesome, even though you don't think you are.
You know, so let me stay here for a minute because the confidence is really tricky. Let me do boys for a minute. Boys that are in the lower third of sport, like the bottom third of sport, and if that community is socially minded around sport, it's a hard place to be.
Mm,
So if you're a boy and you're not very good at sport, and
yeah.
I don't know the research around girls, um, so it depends. Like the adults in your life that are helping you figure out how to interpret it. It's a really important role that people take there. And so if you're not good and people are like, they don't want to talk to you, they're asking more, parents, coaches are asking more about outcome than they are about growth and getting better. It's a tough place because it's
Yeah.
natural to compare. And it sounds like you had some of that comparison trap with maybe some body stuff, at a young age. But like, let's pull on this thread just a little bit. You say sport and confidence hung out together for you. Like it was a place for you to sort out confidence. How were you able to build confidence?
I think your point is really good for the people at the back of the pack. It's, a different experience. I do sort of anecdotally feel like girls' sports perhaps are a little more community based at times. And it depends on the sport too. But for me, the confidence came with understanding that my body was a tool and could take me places, and that I actually had the ability to shape the experience. If I went in the weight room and I did the work and I did the stuff, I got better. So it was this very linear, and I didn't come in naturally gifted. I had no sports experience. There was no sport in my family. I wasn't exposed to it. So I learned pretty quickly that hard work led to result, which then led to confidence. And it was something that I could control.
Amen to that. Yeah, confidence is 100% under our control. We just don't really teach people the mechanics of it, which it's not complicated. It's basically what you say to yourself.
Mhm.
And so if that's where confidence comes from. But it's got to be credible, meaning that you got to really test yourself to be able to know that you can stand up to tests. And how do you speak to yourself when you don't know if you have what it takes? It's easy when it's easy, right? Like, I'm built for this. Let's go. That's easy.
Yeah,
But when
winning, and when you're super prepared and everything's going perfully, it might
yeah,
physically hurt, but it feels pretty good emotionally. You're like, yeah, I'm on it. I got
I'm
this.
on it. But when you don't know, this is, our brains love this, by the way. Our psychology is, unless trained, doesn't love it, but how do you speak to yourself when you're not sure? And I love this space. This is back to almost your first comment, the space between knowing and not knowing. How do you
Mhm.
speak to yourself?
I'm gonna go to the Iditarod Trail maybe as an example, because the last few years,
Explain what that is to folks.
yeah.
I mean,
So the Iditarod
this is one of the
Trail,
big ones. Yeah.
it's a big one. The
Yeah.
Iditarod Trail it's a historic trail in Alaska. It was used it's basically a transportation route that was used to deliver medicine. It's a really cool history. And it goes all through the interior of Alaska. It's 1,000 miles, and there's a race out there called the Iditarod Trail Invitational, and there's a 350-mile version and a 1,000-mile version. It happens in the winter, so temperatures can be -40, and it's in a type of travel on bike called bike packing. So you're carrying all of your stuff with you on your bike: a -40 sleeping bag, all your food, medical supplies, bike supplies, navigational equipment. So your bike is a rolling hotel, and you're self-supported, and you go and do it as long as it takes. And obviously the elements are super duper committing. And the last 3 years, I swear I would never do any winter bike expeditions because I don't really like the cold. But I've started to get really deep into winter bike expeditions, really, really in the last 5 years, and including the Iditarod Trail Invitational that now I've done 3 times. And I said no to this event for a long time, and I curiosity kept coming up. Like, I wonder if I could actually survive it. Could I actually do it? And I started to realize I've been doing hard things all my life, but that I hadn't pushed myself to a really committing expedition in a number of years. And that level of commitment of really, am I going to die? Could I survive this? Because this is definitely very extreme uh, environment that you're in. And I realized that I needed that level of commitment again to really make myself rise to the occasion. So prepared. My first year was a total shit show. I don't know if I can say shit show on here, but the first year I had the endurance experience. It wasn't the distance that was intimidating, but the elements and could I survive in the cold? And I finished. I won the women's field, but I was literally a sobbing, bloated, crying mess, physically and emotionally broken at the end of it, because I had gone in and I wasn't confident and I said, I'm not sleeping outside. There's no way I'm stopping. I'm not going to like curl up in the snow and like let the wolves eat me. And like, I'm not going to do it. And so
What were you, hold on. What were you afraid of?
I was afraid of the cold. So I was afraid of, if I stopped, that I would freeze to death.
Okay. And then where did you come up with that idea?
Just because my physiology has never been very good in the cold. I get really cold hands and feet. I just have never been one who's fine in the cold. It's always been kind of like fear of the water or fear of falling. Cold has been kind of a primal element for me, even since I was a child. Like, I hate being cold. And so it's hard to emphasize how big of a step that was to go into the cold unsupported without a building to go into to warm up.
Why did you do this? Yeah, I mean, you've already done everything. So this is, and won everything, it seems like. Leadville
Why
100,
is a good question.
Yeah, like I usually don't ask the question why.
I get asked why a lot.
Yeah. I usually have a little bit of an aversion to whys. And I know some people really like the why question, but it feels cheap. And so I want to understand more context. But so I'm using it here with you, like, but I want to use it sensitivity. Like, why at this point in your life go into the cold?
Because I needed to continue to learn, and that curious student explorer.
What did you need to learn?
What did I need to learn? I needed to push myself really hard again, physically. And
what did you need that for?
I need that because when I push myself really hard physically, that is my teacher. That is where I learn about myself. It's where I understand what's next. It's where I solve all of my problems, whether it's a bike ride here in my backyard or the really deep philosophical questions of, why am I here? What am I doing? What is this world about? That happens for me in places where I'm physically at my limit. And I realized I hadn't done that before, or I hadn't done that in a while, since Blood Road, really. The Ho Chi Minh Trail that was the last really big expedition ride I did. And that is the platform for me to perform physically at my best. But what happens in those kinds of really committing, scary environments is that I rise to the occasion. It's like the woman pulling her car off a baby, or like, we can do things that we don't believe we can do, but you have to immerse yourself like fully in the element to go there.
And how do you know that you're not using this narrative to get another notch, to know that you still matter in this decade, to be relevant to whatever fill in the blank, others, whatever community? And I've watched you for decades, kind of our ships passing in the nighttime when I was with Red Bull. I know you're still with them. So like, how do you know that? I believe you. But how do you wrestle with that part of it? I'm doing this because It's a frontier I haven't been to. I I don't want to say it out loud because I'm smart enough, savvy enough to know that I don't want to tell somebody that this is the only way I can be relevant.
There is an element of that. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be super open. There's an element that, when people say, when are you going to retire? Or, oh, you're a retired athlete. There's an element in me that's like, no, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Watch this. And
Mm.
partially it's for me, it's for my own confidence. And partially I want to continue with my career trajectory. And partially is to prove it to myself that, like, oh, wait, no, I'm not done. I can do something bigger and harder and really commit to it. So I can't say it's not just all about this, beautiful internal exploration with all the right values. I mean, we all have kind of this motivational menu, that's and some of them are intrinsic motivators, some of them are extrinsic motivators. And yeah, that looks great for my sponsors. If I go to Alaska and I win a race, awesome. That's a really good check mark. It's not the primary motivator at all, but it's part of it. It's part of what I do. It's part of being an athlete. And so yeah, there is a part of that, of being relevant, and we all want to contribute. I've also recognized that when I go do that really gnarly stuff and I come back and have stories to tell from that, people really like those stories because it's a
Yeah.
very extreme example of fear. And like you said, what do you say when you're lost and you're cold and you're hungry and it's not going well? I can go into that place for people who never want to go there and never will. I can go there, do a little experimentation on myself, and then come back with some answers. And that 3-year trajectory of the Iditarod Trail went from being one of my most pathetic performances in year number 1, and just, in year number 3 being one of the best expeditions of my life in an element that I'm not very good at, in the cold. And so that's a pretty cool short-term trajectory.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break right here to talk about Audible. For those of you unfamiliar with Audible, they are the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks. They're my go-to. Audible has become one of my favorite places to devour content, especially the content when I'm on the go. And so 2 of the books that I just put down, one was Anne Frank. Her Life and Legacy is the subtitle. It's so good. It was so good. And then I also just finished C.S. Lewis's autobiography, and that was titled Surprised by Joy. And I definitely recommend checking out both of those. And then as an Audible member, you get 1 credit every month that's good for any title in their entire premium selection. And those titles are yours to keep forever in your Audible library. And on their newest plan that they've got, it's called Audible Plus. They give you full access to their popular Plus catalog. And that is filled with thousands and thousands of audiobooks, original entertainment, guided fitness, sleep tracks, for better rest, and including ad-free versions of your favorite shows and exclusive series as well. All are included with your membership so that you can download and stream all that you want. No credits needed. So new members can try Audible Plus for 30 days for free. And all you got to do is visit audible.com/findingmastery or text Finding Mastery to 500-500 to take advantage of the offer that they're presenting us. So that's audible.com/findingmastery or text Finding Mastery to 500-500. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. By now, I hope you have had the chance to try them out. Even if you're only recently starting the podcast, I think that you know by now how much I believe in what they're doing. Their daily green supplement has been my absolute go-to for the last 6 years for staying healthy and getting in the vital nutrients. The way that I use their product, it's every morning, 1 scoop mixed with water, I shake it up, and it's just a way to get, enhanced absorption for the nutrients that I'm talking about. And so what I love about their product is that, they're obsessive about improving this one holistic formula that is backed and based on research. They've had 53 iterations over the last decade, and they're coming. They keep making it better. It's amazing. And it's a lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto or paleo or vegan or dairy-free or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar without compromising on any of the taste. So right now, Athletic Greens is doubling down on supporting our immune system. So they're offering us a free 1-year supply of vitamin D, and 5 free individual packs with your first purchase when you visit athleticgreens.com/finding mastery. Again, all you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/finding mastery to get your free year supply of vitamin D, as well as 5 free travel packs. So with that, get your Athletic Greens. Let's get right back to this conversation. Yeah, and I want to go to 2 places about if we were to sequence the places, the space between during your first race, and you ended beaten up. You won, but depleted, radically depleted. It's the spaces in between that can make a massive difference. If you came in prepared and primed from a physiological state, then it is the way that you're using your mind in those hard moments. And so if we were to say, we were kind of pull it apart, and there's big chunks and little chunks, and in the little chunks of this timeline for your first race, if the little chunks were the way that you were speaking to yourself when it was hard, what were you doing then that was different on your third race when you ended and you're like, oh my God, like that was very different?
Yeah, the first race, I was beating myself up. I suck. I'm terrible. I'm scared. I don't want to be here. It was very negative conversation happening in my head, and I had to
What
use.
does that sound like though?
It's words that you wouldn't even use on yourself, and this is something that a tactic that I tell people that I talk to is like, if you're saying, oh, Rebecca, you suck, like why, you go home, why are you even doing this? Would you say that would I say that to you if you were next to me? Absolutely not. What would I say? I'd say, no, Michael, you can do it. Come on. You got this, you prepared, blah, blah, blah. We don't use the kind voice on ourselves very often. And so, yeah, I was super negative about myself. And if I could have quit, I would have. But the fact that there's nowhere to go out there, I couldn't quit. I had to finish. And I finished not proud of my performance and not proud of that athlete who was on the trail, and being like, okay, and people are like, you won, that was great. But I wasn't proud of the achievement. And I knew I had to go back and do it better. And that was my very next thought is, okay, I can do that better. And the second year was better. And really the third year, the big difference for me was in some new techniques that I started implementing, not new for me, not new for anyone, but some very specific breathing techniques that I took to Alaska, some very specific energy techniques of like harnessing energy and keeping it in to keep me warm, and really being much more mindful. I was physically better prepared. I will say that. My coach got me really ready. We did a bunch of making my own food that I experimented with after year number 1, and like making my own food, putting it in the freezer at home, seeing if it was edible when it was frozen, and really figuring out the nutrition, because I wasn't able to eat or drink very well year 1. And so there was some physical stuff that I educated myself and figured out on. But really the big factor was Iditarod this last year is the first year that I was very consciously using breathing techniques and energy and calming myself, and instead of getting into a panic and a frenzy, and really conserving energy and spending it only in the places that I wanted to spend it.
How did you train for that? And what were the breathing techniques you were using?
I made them up as I went along. And so some of them have been just, reading cool books. The book Breath is out now. And I read a book called just about the channels of energy, aligned in your spine and your chakra. And so it was really just kind of listening to podcasts like Finding Mastery and just diving a little further in. And I do have to say, Red Bull's been kind of amazing with, their athlete performance team. And we did some camps long ago where they put brain electrodes on our heads and made us go around this track a million times and trying to figure out, does the mind or the body quit first? And so I'd been lightly introduced to some of these things, but I hadn't really taken them really into practice. And I feel like everyone around the world is waking up to this right now, not just me, but it's super exciting. And so one breath that I made up, and I'll tell you this, what's really cool about what's happening right now in my world is that I'm starting to understand intuitively. For decades, I've been doing the right things as an athlete without a lot of coaching, without a lot of understanding what I was doing. And now with some study and some research and like talking to different people who are experts in these fields, I'm consciously starting to understand like, oh yeah, that's what I've been doing. Okay, cool. I'm going to put a name to it and I'm going to like consciously do it instead of, I've always been breathing. And I think that's the thing about sport that's kind of awesome. It makes you breathe hard and it just happens naturally. If you're working really hard, you breathe hard. But taking it a next level is actually breathing in a certain way. And so what I did in Alaska, and then I came home and kind of like found out, I'd done some things that were already written down that were kind of cool. I called it the tree breath. And so it's so beautiful there. There's mountains all around. And so when I was feeling tired, it's like, okay, I'm going to take energy, like the leaves of a tree. I'm going to take it all in. And also the interesting thing about Alaska and these really remote races is you're wearing a satellite tracking device. So I knew people at home were watching me and they like get up in the middle of the night and they'd see this little dot moving along. And so I knew people out there. So the tree breath was to like, all the leaves of the tree are bringing energy into me, into my body. Take a deep breath in and then breathe it out into the earth like the roots of a tree. So going out, coming in, going out, coming in. And I had this visual of this tree breath. And the trees become this symbol in my life for a different reason, but it was basically a grounding breath and an energy conservation breath and it gave me something else to think about instead of I'm cold, I'm freezing, how much longer? And so, yeah, I was using the tree breath. And then I was also using this other breath. My husband was there with me and it was a really beautiful experience. We ended up riding together, unplanned, amazing experience. But, he's trudging behind me, or if he was feeling down, I would switch the breath. So instead of coming straight up and down, it was going forward and back. And so I'd like breathe in energy from the trail into me and then send it out the back back to him.
Wow.
And I was just doing that. And honestly, it worked. And we both had an amazing time. It was super positive. I was cold, but I wasn't cold. And I just managed the same situation so much better. And also having an appreciation for the fact that I get to do these things. I choose to do these things. I get to be in Alaska in the middle of winter, looking at wolf tracks, and how lucky that my body can take me there instead of this like, oh, this is painful, I hate it, why am I here? I think that comes with age, realizing that like, I only have so many years left to perform in this way. And like, I want to be in the moment and take everything out of it, because there'll be a time when I won't be able to do that.
Mm. I think that you've used your external environments as a forcing function to get to the truth. And it sounds to me that, in surfing, we call it waves of consequence. You're calling it, committing environments. Same thing. Is that if you're not right, you figure out quickly, and sometimes it's consequential and sometimes it's just really scary. And it's not lost on me, just your first race was about you and shit talking to yourself the whole time, beating yourself up from a critical, fear-based approach. And to the last is like you were using your environment to give life to, and energy to your husband. Like nobody really does this stuff alone. We do the thing alone. Even like when we're on a team, like we're executing oftentimes completely by ourselves, even though we have a teammate that's right beside us.
Yeah.
And you don't have a teammate out there. But so can you talk about that relationship between solitude, aloneness, loneliness, and connection?
Yeah. I do a lot of stuff alone. And if I don't have a regular dose of alone, I'm an introvert, and if I don't have quite a bit of time alone, I start to I'm not that nice to be around. And so alone doesn't mean loneliness to me. That said, I have a husband and dogs, and I cherish my community. When I'm on the trail, like the Iditarod Trail alone, at this point, I feel it is for me, but I also feel kind of a responsibility to take that story and that experience and share it with people who will never be on the Iditarod Trail. And that's, we're circling back a little bit to the trajectory of my career of giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I can give is, I started calling this concept that is coming to me of like, I find myself on the trail. I solve my answers on the trail. I find my purpose on the trail. And I've started calling it Dirt Dharma because it's like, this is where I need to be. It's how I understand my life is with Dirt Dharma. And even though I was in the snow in Alaska, I'm not alone out there because I feel a responsibility to survive for myself, but to bring these gifts home for other people, whether it's bringing it to my husband or bringing it to my riding community or people maybe who aren't athletes, but still can resonate with a beautiful place and be like, wow, what's Alaska look like in the winter? So I don't feel alone out there. And this year was a very distinct example of the fact that I'm not alone. And I felt so energized and not tired.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm definitely not alone. I actually feel a responsibility now and a purpose that, I'm the Pied Piper, I'm the messenger for some of these lessons and that come from the trail. And I need to deliver them back home to whoever wants to listen and whoever wants to take them.
So you referenced Dharma, which is both a Buddhist and and Hindu. And so are you coming at it from more of a Buddhist perspective, to use that word?
I do think some of these, performance and I am coming at it from an Eastern philosophy. And really that started to happen in 2015, the most important ride of my life. I went and rode the Ho Chi Minh Trail through Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And that is where my career as an athlete, as an expedition athlete, combined with my family. And my dad was shot down over there. He was in the Vietnam War. He was a fighter pilot, F-4 Phantom, and he didn't come home. And I was 3 years old. And many, almost 50 years later, I had this idea of like, I wonder if anybody's ridden the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I wonder if I could go there. I had this map coordinate, and I've always loved maps. I've always loved a paper map and compass, and I was drawn to that location in the middle of Laos, to a tree where my dad died. And that expedition really brought into focus my purpose and my reason for being an endurance athlete and my why. People ask why you've been doing this, and it became, I sort of woke up there, standing at the tree and understanding that I could use my bike for a lot more. But really, Michael, it's like the 6 years since that happened, I'm only just now understanding what that ride meant and understanding that I felt my dad's presence there and there was energy and, connecting with another community that were quote unquote enemies. That ride really changed me. And I think that's where we stood in some of the temples there and along the ride, and I rode with a Vietnamese teammate, and we were on the trail for a month, fully immersed in that culture and that place. And you can't help but be moved when you go in and sit with monks and, you see, I very remember one specific temple where we had already gone to the tree and the place and walked in, and, it's all brown and dirt outside, and you walk in and it's just the most vibrant colors that you've ever seen in your life. And there's, the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, of where he found enlightenment. And I'm not claiming I'm enlightened in any way, but this sort of tree image and, the Buddha finding himself under the tree just kind of like almost punched me in the arm to be like, hello, Rebecca, like, here's, this is what's happening for you. Wake up, here's your tree. You just went to the tree. You're on a spiritual journey. And it really was a spiritual journey for me. And it's been, I won't lie, I came back from that trip and I was very lost, very depressed, very down for a couple of years on being, well, what's my purpose? How do you follow up on the most important ride of your life? What does it mean? What do I do now? Is my competitive spirit gone? Really some deep soul searching. And that's where during that period, I started journaling and started writing down some thoughts and developing what I call, my navigational handrails, and using that map and compass sort of a theme of, where am I going? Where are we going? And maybe we don't know the exact trail. I don't have a trail map, but I have a much better compass now that is kind of sort of keeping me between the lines a little bit. And I have to thank my dad for that. And, he's teaching me even in his death. He's not physically here, but there was a big awareness on that trip. And that's where this concept of, it's taken 6 years, but the concept of dirt dharma and the principles that I stand for and my responsibility to share what I know, that all stems from that ride. And I think it's been building my whole career for a while. All these trails have been all leading, to a similar spot, but it's kind of exciting to consciously understand and be able to articulate some of that. And listen to some of the messages that have been there for a long time.
And are those core values, the risk, reward, passion, payoff, your give, get, less is equals more? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically a pattern of looking back and the, highlights, great things that happened in my life. And I started to look for a pattern. And that's what happened during that really dark period of like, well, when I was happy, what was I doing? What things fell into place? And that's kind of those navigational handrails. And ultimately, my dad, I wrote a mission statement, for myself, and kind of stemming from the words that my dad signed all his letters home from the Vietnam War with the words, be good. And so now really be good has become the name of my foundation, my guiding principle. And it really is quite simple, being good to yourself, the environment, the people around you. It's not that hard, but I wasn't listening for a while.
Very cool. And then when you throw the word depression out there, do you want me to hear that from a clinical psychologist perspective, or like I was just down?
I didn't go see a clinical psychologist, but not being able to get out of bed for days, not eating, there's I think some classic sort of symptoms that, and I wasn't, I guess, diagnosed as depressed, but it was pretty dark time. It seems like that's what depression is. And we're all in a spectrum of it. I don't think anybody goes through life without feeling some of those things. But I mean,
well, there's episodes, and then there's the cluster of symptoms that last longer than 30 days, which if it lasts longer than 30 days and you have a cluster of symptoms of, loneliness and sadness and that you go, oh, okay, well, that looks like there's a pattern there. And was it longer than 30 days with a cluster of symptoms that sound and look like depression?
Yeah, it was a couple of years of some real highs and, some real lows, some okays and some lows again. And it was me trying to figure out the dirt dharma, the navigational tools, really trying to actually understand. And when somebody has a really big life experience, like I did on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, there is very often, and I do this when I come back from expeditions, there's a pattern, very often a pattern for me, at least, of you're on a high, and then you come back and have a very big low, at least I do, of, wow, well, what now? Like, how does anything even compare to like what just happened? Probably athletes coming back from the Olympics who are winning, pinnacle gold medals or whatever, come back and go, well, what do I do now? Or the athletes who went and didn't get a medal. what I do now. And I'm not saying it's the same experience, but there was definitely a couple years where I didn't really understand what was happening. And I probably should have called you up at that time or seen somebody and talked to somebody, but I used the only tool that I really knew how. And that was journaling, that I was forced to do on the trail because we were making a film called Blood Road. And I have to thank the creative director, Nicholas Shrunk, for making me write down thoughts every day for the film. And I carried that through. I'm really thankful that he introduced that into my life. And the other thing I knew how to do was to go out and ride my bike. I'd just go out in nature and I'd go walk my dog. And even though I stopped competing for a while because there was no motivation, I went into nature. I wrote stuff down and reached out to a very small, on one hand or less group of people who knew what I was going through.
So just a couple notes here. One, I want to highlight that if I have it right, you won an Emmy for Blood Road. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I want to encourage people, go check out another winning experience that you've had here. It's moving. And the other so thank you for producing that, creating that, telling that story. The other is that for depression, we're in a really unique time right now where people are talking about mental wellness, and I don't like the word mental health because it sounds like it's a disorder type, conversation, but being well mentally. And if somebody finds themselves in a state of depression, journaling is good. Movement is good. Being outside is good. Volunteering is good. And if you want, and there's other stuff that's good as well, but those are some basic things that are available to most people, if not all. And, if you want to go fix your car, you go to a mechanic and there's no stigma, I think that we're at a really important time to say, go talk to somebody that spent their whole life to understand how the mind works and how, when there's a dark patch or a hard patch, like what the navigation waypoints are through it. I will say, I mean, not knowing 2 years is a long time, Rebecca, could we have gotten it down to 2 months? I don't know. But, you navigated without a trail map. There are people that studied 14 years to get a, PhD and get licensed and all that. But then add another 20 on top of that for someone who's been in the field for a while. It is a faster path, so it's a cool time that we're at right now. And I'm sorry you had to take so long,
Yeah. And I don't know why we don't, and I didn't reach out to professionals, and especially as a Red Bull athlete, I had access.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more ego, I don't need help. I'm fine. I got this. But yeah, you're right. We have a coach, we have a mechanic, we have all sorts of professionals, and that's what they do. And I'm glad that this conversation is so in the forefront for athletes, but for anyone right now. And I have a question for you. What's maybe some of your favorite tools if somebody doesn't know you or doesn't have a person? Are there some good digital tools that you feel like there's all sorts of meditation apps and things like that? Is there a tool that you like for mental wellness that you feel like is accessible to the masses?
Yeah, I think that it's a cool question. Thank you. There's not one tool that will do it. And it is a little bit, I liked how you talk about the motivational menu. There's a bit of a menu to pull from. And if we kind of zoom out and we look at the kind of the longer arc of life, people that understand and do some work on the big questions of life will have a better go at it. Mm-hmm. And there's some science there. So when we look at the bit on fulfillment in life, people that wrestle with the hard questions tend to, when they are near the end of life, feel more fulfilled. So that's one. Relationships. And it's not having people that love you, but having people that you can share love with. It's another big rock. And that's available to all of us. Again, you get it wrong when it's I just wish I had an intimate relationship where somebody loved me. No. How well can you share love with others? Meditation and mindfulness, certainly, there's so much good research around that for anxiety, depression, and overall well-being as well. Exercise, but not exercise to the overtraining standpoint, because that can look just like depression. So moving well with proper recovery in place. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a well-studied and understood approach to anxiety and depression. So is ACT as a modality. So awareness, commitment, therapy or training. And so there's a bit more of a gentle approach there to becoming familiar with your thoughts and working with your thoughts. I said volunteering, I said exercise, I said nutrition, being outside is a good one. So there's a whole handful of things that you are doing well. And probably the CBT or the ACT would be the one that we would add to that mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't have a personal guide like you, are there, and they can look at that menu, but like for me, I sort of had that menu, but is there a cool app, or is there like a practice or a way that if we don't have a human in our lives like you to kind of kickstart some of those things? Yeah,
no, there's not.
Okay.
There's meditation apps that are pretty good. And that's a big rock to get in the container,
Yeah.
And I don't know of a one-stop shop for mental well-being. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
It's probably being built right now, which is like,
that's great. And there are, like you said, the meditation apps are great. Everyone can go walk, hopefully, or move in the way that you can move. I found that when I was writing the book, when we talked about that, my dog was actually a very good therapist, because I'd sit there and pound my head against the desk, and the dog, Diesel, would come up and put his head on my leg and kind of be like, come on, we need to go outside. And I'd go for a walk for 15 minutes, come back in, and the ideas would start flowing again. And I was like, oh, okay, I should move. I should be in nature every once in a while. So if you have a dog and you're stuck on a problem, go take them for a walk.
It's so good. And, like getting away, pushing yourself back from a desk is really important, and not kind of just staying and grinding. It's real. But the other thing that dogs do, so the mechanism of going outside is good. The mechanism of walking is good. The mechanism of pushing back from your desk is good. But there's another thing that dogs offer, which is non-judgmental interest, without critique, without, judging or belittling. They're just interested. And that is an emblem for the way that we can treat others. And it's an emblem for the way that we can treat ourselves. Your first exercise in the cold, it was like the exact opposite of what your dog does, right? And the last was the exact, mechanism that your dog gives you, which is like, hey, I'm good. Like, I'm going to share a little good with you too, So it's great. Like animals, they have a way about doing that.
Well, and there's also, isn't the tactile sensation, that's also releases neurochemicals. You pet a dog, from my understanding. So there's all sorts of things. So I will say, though, I have a girl dog, Gracie. I think she does judge me a little bit sometimes.
Well, it's funny because not all dogs are calm, structures, like they're not, or mechanisms, or animals. So I will add this to you, is that there is something very important about being around others that are calm. And so if your dog is mellow and just like, wants to have a walk, or is excitable because it's looking forward to something, it's a very positive, if you will, or an accelerant towards excitement or calmness. Just like with people, if you're around people that are anxious or depressed, agitated, angry, frustrated, that affects us. And so this is one of the reasons that we think, from a really interesting neurobiological standpoint, is when you are rattling, say you are really scared, really sad, really frustrated, highly depressed, and you're with a trained professional that can hold the space in a grounded, clear, calm, compassionate way, just that relationship in of itself holds for maybe 60, 70% of the outcomes. And so that's kind of cool too, if you can offer that to your loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, and what you're touching on is part of that sort of energy work that I've become more aware of. Yeah, we all know when you walk in a room, if somebody's, super amped, you pick up on that. Or if you walk into the
Yep.
room and everybody's, listening to Miles Davis, it's a different experience. And so, yeah, just like humming and energy work and like bringing ourselves down from this like super high vibration to a lower vibration. I've been conscious of that during my rides, like standing on the start line. We all know that feeling of just, being hyper anxious. And of course, you have to be tuned and ready, but you don't have to be spinning out of control and like such a high vibration, because it actually doesn't serve. And so I'm
Yeah.
starting to understand that, which is really cool. And part of what I took to Alaska too, and I'm doing now with just, like vibrational, like crystal bowls and things that just, if you are in a weird vibration, get yourself back down.
You now lost me.
I lost you with a crystal bowl. Okay,
You
but
lost
like
me with
it's like if you sing, say when people
but
sing, they feel
okay,
better.
so I can make some leaps here. I can
Yeah.
definitely make some leaps. Like, and I was going to make a good solid leap, I think, which is um, alpha, beta, theta, delta, gamma brainwaves.
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
can call it energy, but I'll prefer to call this, just this part of the conversation, brainwaves. And
Yeah.
when you're at a starting gate and you have too much beta,
Mm-hmm.
too anxious, if you
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
it's not good. But you do need some of that switched on beta. And so not enough theta or too much theta, which is a very mellow brainwave, we got a problem.
Yeah.
We're not switched on. So, and I love where you're going with that part of the conversation. And when you sing and there's a vibration and all of that, I get lost there. I just don't know the science well enough. And I will say, when I go to like a sound bath or I'll do like a drum circle or something like that, I feel different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the science of it. Okay. And so I need to laugh a little bit. I need to say, I need to learn more. And
well, that's what's so cool is the science and the sort of ancient techniques or things that have always been there are coming together. And I know there's an explanation that I don't have of like you listen to a certain, vibrational note, maybe it's an F key or whatever, that is going to make that brain wave, in line. You're going to hear more of that. And so somebody smarter than both of us maybe could explain it, but there is a connection that I'm kind of trying to uncover a little bit. But it happens in music, it happens, in lots of different sounds, and it has to do with your brain. Absolutely.
yeah, I'm down with that for sure. Okay. So let me go back to you. What are you craving? What are you really searching for?
Wow. Yeah, okay. I knew you were going to stump me and you did it.
That's not the purpose, but yeah.
No, I appreciate that you're making me think, because yeah, I have a lot, I even took notes while we're sitting here talking.
You are a learner. Mm-hmm.
What do I crave?
And I understand that's a complicated word from a Buddhist perspective.
It's really complicated. I'm trying to think of a really short answer.
Yeah, let's create a forcing function and put it into 1 or 2 words.
What do I crave? I crave purpose and mobility.
What is your heart longing for?
Peace.
And what do you do to prepare yourself and practice for peace?
Go outside. Breathe. Turn off digital devices.
When was the last time you felt peace?
This weekend.
Mm-hmm. And so that was 3 or 4 days ago?
Yes. Yeah, that was a 22 hours on the bike with my husband into remote Idaho. We did a little overnighter.
And is it hard to find a sense of peace when you're not exhausted?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
It's getting easier. That's a lot of these tools that we've been talking about, with meditation and mindfulness and, sound, because I am really trying to take what I know on the bike and in movement, and I'm trying to bring that into my still world and into sort of regular life, so to speak.
Okay. So remember we talked about, right at the beginning, we talked about like double clicking, getting into some best practices. And you talked about sleep as being one of them. You talked about meditation. I don't know what the other ones were, but what are you doing how do you prepare for sleep?
I prepare for sleep. Well, first I prioritize sleep. I think that is the first thing is understanding that really is our magic pill that we can
Hmm.
take.
Hmm.
It's and understanding the science behind it's really cool. Instead of being like, oh, I should sleep 8 hours a night. Somebody said that, my grandma said that. But understanding the science and all the cool stuff that happens when you sleep. Um, so it has motivated me. And so first it was understanding it, motivating me, prioritizing it, and realizing that um, even though I do events where I don't sleep, I don't want to carry that into my regular life. So preparing for sleep is, there's a regular bedtime. We have a great mattress. I wear an eye cover. I've got this cool little beamer device, a circulation mat that's under my bed. Um,
Is that like
but
a
really,
grounding
I
mat?
do. What's that?
Is that a grounding mat?
It's a no, it's a pulse electromagnetic
Yeah.
therapy. So yeah,
Yep. Yep.
so
That's a cheap way of me saying grounding. Yeah.
oh,
Okay.
cool. Yeah. So it's a grounding
Mm-hmm.
mat. So I turn that little
Mm-hmm.
thing on. The dogs come up, everybody comes up there's kind of a ritual of like
Mm-hmm.
getting the dogs and everybody up into bed. Um, and we open the windows, we keep our bedroom pretty cool. Um, yeah, those are the main things. I mean, it's not super complicated. And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Super simple. And
yeah.
then when it comes to habits, what are some core habits that you're like, hey, listen, and you might say, I'm not really interested in habits, like I like the free flowing of things more, but if you have some habits, what are the core ones?
I'm trying to have better habits because I do realize actually if you look back, I have a lot of bad habits of like plop down in front of the TV or like, I'm tired. So then I just like lay around. And part of that is understanding that we actually get energy from different instead of like if you don't feel high energy or if I don't feel high energy, typically it's been like I want to lay down and do nothing. But understanding that actually walking or gardening or actually a little bit of movement will build energy instead
Hmm.
of take it away. And I feel that on the bike, people be like, how can you ride 10 hours and still do it? And it's because I'm gaining energy from the place that I am. And so I'm adapting some of my rituals so they aren't so sloth like. And I know people will laugh and they're like, there's no way you're lazy or whatever, but I am. And so some of the rituals are, in the morning, drinking green juice or water before I drink the coffee.
Ditto. Yeah, I do the same. I'm
Simple.
actually,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm using athletic greens, which you'll be familiar with. I drop a little bit of lemon,
Hmm.
a little MCT oil, and
Hmm.
then a little pinch of Himalayan salt.
Oh,
And
cool.
so, yeah, just for some of those interesting minerals that come with Himalayan salt. And then the lemon's just for an interesting taste, but it's also got, some cool enzymes that I'm interested in. And then MCT allows me to, fuel my brain before, gives me a little bit of a buffer to support the autophagy process. And so, which is just kind of the cleaning out
Yeah.
mechanism that we go through. Yeah.
I've been doing athletic greens and some beet powder. What do you think about
Have you,
that?
yeah, the beet properties are awesome, aren't they?
Yeah, and
Especially
it
from
tastes good. It mixes well with the
it does, I
athletic
haven't
greens.
tried it. And then, do you have a spiritual framework that you're working from?
I'm yes and no. I feel like I'm a spiritual explorer right now, and a lot of that trends towards Eastern philosophies and a lot of the stuff that we've already been talking about. But I'm still formulating it, kind of as a menu, so to speak.
What happens after we physically die?
I believe our spirit is here. I believe that because of my experience with my dad. He's been here my whole life. I just wasn't listening, and that became really apparent in Laos by that tree. When they didn't identify his remains until 2007, and so he was shut down in 1972. So we didn't know what happened. In 2007, they had a ceremony at Arlington. They had a whole, you know, thing. And honestly, it felt very empty to me. I didn't feel his presence. I felt the other people around, the other veterans, my family, but it wasn't, I didn't feel connected. It was just sort of an empty casket, an empty thing. But when I went to that tree in Laos, like my dad was there, and I'd never
Mm.
experienced anything like that before. And all of a sudden it became really apparent that he's been showing up for me a lot. And so I do believe that our spirits are moving around, and that people affect each other, and energy affects other people in many ways. And the more I talk to people, the more people are experiencing that, like their dog or their grandpa or something will like make them think of that person. And it's not coincidence. It's actually the energy is there when somebody's physical body is gone. I do believe that their spirit is a little piece, is in all the people that you've touched, and it's all around. And then that's part of my mission now is to help people get outside and move, and to leave, to live really healthy, happy life, and leave an amazing legacy for the people who will come after them. I mean, my dad died in 1972, and he's part of me. And one of the things
Mm.
I had to tell the film crew of Blood Road, it kept saying, people have said, oh, it must have been closure when you got to go to the place where your dad died. I was like, no, 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 no. It was the opposite. It was a total door opening for me of like all this stuff, my career, and it's because I felt him and his presence. And so I don't believe when we die it all ends. It's just a different form, a different shape. But I do believe that while we're here, we have a responsibility to be good.
I love that. So I want to go back. Remember I asked about 16-year-old? What do you
Yeah,
wish a 16-year-old girl? How
yeah.
about a 26-year-old woman?
26. Oh,
Kind of just after the college years.
I'd say 26, just frigging go for it. Like break the rules, go for it, take the risk, do the thing that seems outrageous. And that's about when I moved into my car and quit my dream job. And was like, Mom, I'm gonna live out of this truck for a while. And I don't regret it for a second. So yeah, just go for it at 26.
And then how about a 26-year-old male?
Same. Go
Same.
exploring, find out. There is no path that says, high school, college, graduate school, da, da, da. Like that's the age of exploration, and to find a little bit of a path. And people will ask, oh, when did you plan to be a professional athlete or this or that? I didn't. I followed my heart. I wanted to go rock climbing. That was literally all it was. I wanted to go rock climbing. So I lived in my car and went rock climbing for a while. And that took me on this trajectory of professional athlete or whatever else. And so male, female, I'd say that age, we have three intellectual centers in our body, our mind, our heart, and our gut. And just go with your heart at that age and just listen to that instead of the brain saying, I should get this job, I should do that.
God, I love that. What do you hope entrepreneurs would be able to understand that you've come to understand?
I think for entrepreneurs, there's no trail map. There's no map. There's just a compass. You get out a machete and bushwhack a little bit, just like make the path. That's the thing. There's a compass, but not a trail.
I love that. And then for executives, people in a big business, whether it's 20 people or 200,000.
For executive, it's that we're all human, the human race. We're part of the human race. No one is special. No one's unique.
And then what is something that has been said to you that changed your life?
Be good.
There you go, Dad.
I got a little teared up there with that
Mm-hmm.
question. Thanks for asking that. I
Yeah.
would want to turn the question on you. Do you have a mantra, saying something that someone said to you that's really stuck?
Yeah, I think I've had lots, but there's one in particular, one of my mentors, or my mentor, not one of them, but my mentor. There's things that my wife says to me that really matters. And, let me just kind of give a preamble to get to the question or the answer is that people oftentimes will ask me like, okay, well, what's different about elite athletes or the best in the world or what are their artists or whatever, or executives? And I'll say, I used to try to understand the psychological characteristics and traits and skills and kind of go from that lenses. And now I'm coming to learn that the relationships matter so much. Like I'm not saying I am that person, but I am doing my very best. And I don't think I could stay the path of doing my very best without my wife.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful, eternally grateful for that. So the things that she says on a regular basis is a reminder, like when it's really hard, like, Mike, you're amazing. Like you can figure this out. Like you can totally figure this out. Mike, you can like that kind of supportive nature and encouragement has been an amazing gift. And so that's one. And the other is my mentor. I think I was like probably 20 something years old. And he says, Mike, you're pretty special. And he says, and you're really insignificant in this world. He says, so I hope you carry both of those at all points in your life. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? Like I was feeling really good. He's like, you're pretty special. And then he's like, you're really insignificant. We've been around thousands and thousands of years. And so, so I think that the duality of those two and the non-duality of just be here and be present has been an important gift to me. So those are a couple.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, they feel good to say them out loud too. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we taking folks? Let's go to your website. What do you think? Rebecca with 2 C's?
Rebecca with 2 C's and last name Rusch. Rush.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good last name. Thanks, Dad.
I know. That is a good one. And so you can find everything there that you're into supporting your books, your book, your movie, your events that you're putting on, and you've got an upcoming event. And for some people that listen to this too late, it won't matter. But you've got an event coming up.
Yeah, the website is my name, RebeccaRusch.com, and it's got, book, movie, foundation, speaking events that I do. I also do a little bit of a training program that is kind of a holistic, it's physical training with my cycling coach, Tim Cusick, but it also includes some of these other things and some of my experience. So yeah, there's some cool stuff digitally online. And, my goal, we already talked about it, is to get more people moving in the outdoors for their own health and happiness and for the health and happiness of our entire world. So whether you join me at an event or listen to this, like, I hope you get out there and get outside.
I love it. And I also want to just add a quick little footnote is that we're talking about depression and whatever. And we didn't talk about the value of medication, that it is one of the recommended, protocols, if you will, for folks that are struggling. So medication, there's a place for medication. And so I just want to make sure that, we also destigmatize that, but also increase the menu, if you would, to use your early language about other things that you can do that might be a first line defense or first line opportunity as opposed to medication. So I want to make sure I come back full circle on that.
Absolutely. And cool. I would love to invite you on a bike ride sometime in Idaho, or a hike or something. We can continue this conversation outside somewhere.
I would love that. Let's figure that out. How about it?
Awesome.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. Hey, Rebecca, thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for the time here and the sharing your wisdom and your commitment to truth is evident. And so I just want to say thank you.
It was really fun. I appreciated our chat. Finally, we got to talk.
More to come. Let's do it. Okay.